The broken song of Kansas City never lulled, even in the twilight hours. The distant call of a saxophone, the wayward shuffle of sleepless souls, and the sighing whispers of the Kansas winds were Elias's ever-present companions. He was a creature of the city, nourished by the shadows, caressed by the gentle rhythm of its pulse. The scent of wet asphalt after a rare summer rainstorm, the silhouette of aging buildings against the gray canvas of the sky, all of it was home to Elias. After a battle with the snarling beast of depression, he had emerged reborn. From the abyss, he had found his purpose: to write, to expose, to shine a light where darkness reigned. But words, though imbued with power, didn't pay the bills. The pursuit of a story that could change his financial status became his new, relentless quest. "Elias," called out Mr. Tatum, the owner of the local newsstand, "got something that might interest you." The older man handed him a yellowed newspaper clipping about a series of odd thefts within the grand stone-clad Halden family crypt. No high-value items, just trinkets and jewelry filled with sentiment, not worth much more than a handful of dusty dollars. Could make a good story, eh? Intrigued, he thanked Tatum and retreated to his worn-down apartment, where stories lived in teetering towers of books and half-filled coffee mugs. Poring over the report, he was captivated by the peculiar thefts. What thief would steal objects of sentimental worth? His journalistic instincts stirred like a roused beast. This mystery was the tantalizing thread he'd been searching for. His days became a montage of shadows and whispers, trailing old leads, speaking to weathered custodians, and navigating through the labyrinthine public library. Mrs. Adley, the octogenarian librarian with the memory of an elephant, proved particularly useful. "Elias," she croaked one day, eyes narrowing. "Mind the details. They're not just trinkets, dear. They're echoes of grief, remnants of the departed. Pay attention, and maybe you'll hear their stories." Heated, he began to look closer, touch deeper into the heart of the mystery. He combed the crypt, the graves, the small church. His curiosity echoed in the cavernous silence of the crypt. The names etched into the cold stones seemed to whisper tales of lives lived, of sorrow and joy frozen in time. Word of his investigation spread, and his inherent generosity played its part. Offering a hand here, a kind word there, he knitted himself into the local community fabric. His past had taught him empathy, and he lent it generously, understanding that every story, every person, was a universe unto themselves. The more the townsfolk trusted him, the deeper he could delve into the mystery shrouding the crypt. As he folded into another restless Kansas night, the city's broken song echoing around him, he was blind to the terrifying dance slowly encroaching his world. His generous heart and persistent nature had plunged him into the first steps of a journey from which there was no return. The city's languid dance continued, the twinkle of morning dew on the pavement greeting Elias as he pursued his investigation. Yet in the soft glow of dawn, a shiver crawled down the spine of Kansas City. It was a subtle shift, a dimming of the familiar and an invasion of something alien. The city seemed to hold its breath, anticipating a crescendo that was yet to come. He paid his regular visit to the library, but Mrs. Adley was noticeably absent. In her place was a substitute, a young woman who barely glanced up from her novel. The librarian's unexpected absence was a discordant note in his carefully orchestrated routine. His queries about Mrs. Adley were met with indifference. "She's under the weather," the girl shrugged, her eyes never leaving her book. The day aged and a golden dusk washed over the city. He found himself outside Mrs. Adley's quaint Victorian-style house. It was uncharacteristic for her to miss work. Her devotion to the library was a fixed star in the town's cosmos. Her silence was concerning. With a hesitant knock, he was greeted by a figure that was both familiar and profoundly alien. Mrs. Adley stood in the doorway, her eyes vacant, her movements unnervingly mechanical. Her usual warm smile had been replaced by a stoic mask. It was as if the essence of the woman he knew had been leached out, leaving behind an eerie shell. In his pursuit for truth, Elias coaxed conversation from Mrs. Adley, But her responses were stilted, her laughter a hollow echo of its former melody. She was changed, her soul seemingly scrubbed clean of joy, bearing a striking similarity to his own desolate state during his struggle with depression. Deep in the belly of the night, he returned to his apartment, his mind teeming with concern and a creeping dread. He revisited the crypt theft reports, connecting dots that initially seemed random and disparate. The stolen items all bore a commonality. They all contained traces of a strange mineral that appeared otherworldly in nature. His heart pounded in his chest as he pieced together a horrifying hypothesis. The thefts, the changes in Mrs. Adley, the strange mineral, all of it hinted at an invasion not of this earth. He fell into an uneasy sleep, his dreams haunted by spectral figures and a world slipping into darkness. In the safety of his slumber, the cosmic horror he was beginning to unearth revealed itself, albeit subtly. Parasites, entities from another world, were quietly nesting in the town, latching onto souls, siphoning off their life force. Awakening in a cold sweat, he was no longer the young journalist seeking financial gain. He was the harbinger of an unspeakable terror, a truth-bearer in a town that was falling into the clutches of an alien invasion. He felt the invisible shiver that ran through the city, the chilling prelude to a darkness that was quietly seeping in, its icy fingers brushing against the curtain of reality. His world had been disrupted, his journey had veered into the uncanny, and as dawn painted the city with a feeble light, he knew he was treading the path into the unexplored, into the heart of cosmic horror. The unsettling mystery of the alien parasites began to stretch its inky tendrils into the heart of Kansas City. This once bustling, vibrant metropolis now held a sinister secret within its underbelly, an insidious invasion that lay just beneath the skin of normality. Elias was the lone soldier, marching bravely against an enemy too monstrous for the human mind to fathom. With every sunrise, more townsfolk fell prey to the alien entity, their spirits dulled, their laughter silenced. Each individual lost to the parasite was a quiet symphony of horror that echoed in Elias's tormented mind. Their hollow eyes, vacant smiles, and automated movements were a chilling tableau of the town's descent into the clutches of the cosmic invaders. His journalistic instinct sharpened into a weapon of resistance. He fought against the rising tide of horror, gathering evidence of the parasitic invasion. With every stolen trinket and the increasingly distant victims, the terrifying picture became clearer. The crypt thefts were not random acts of greed. They were deliberate, calculated moves in a chilling game of cosmic chess. He found himself in an uphill battle to alert the city to its impending doom. His pleas fell on deaf ears. His warnings laughed off as fantasies. The more he tried to make the townsfolk see the truth, the more they pushed him away, their minds already poisoned by the alien parasites. His loneliness amplified, the taste of desperation growing bitter in his mouth. Then came the pivotal twist, a moment that would send ripples through the stagnant pool of his existence. One day, while carefully examining a stolen mourning brooch under a microscope, a tiny organism stirred. It was an alien parasite, mirroring the horror that had silently infested his beloved town. In that moment of chilling realization, his worst fear was confirmed. He was infected as well. The once ambitious journalist was now the host to an otherworldly invader. His inner cosmos was under siege, his soul under the knife. The past trauma of his battle with depression intensified the parasite's control. Every memory, every past sorrow, every night spent cloaked in darkness was now a weapon the alien entity used to strengthen its grip. He stood at the edge of a precipice, his world crashing around him. He was no longer a mere observer, but a participant in the cosmic horror that had befallen Kansas City. His pursuit of financial gain had led him down a path strewn with unimaginable terror and despair. The parasites had claimed his town, and now they had claimed him. But within the folds of this despair was a flicker of defiance. He wouldn't allow himself to be the puppet of an alien entity. As the last vestiges of his old life faded into oblivion, a new Elias was born. A man armed with the truth, cloaked in despair, and fueled by a raw, desperate need to save his city from the unfathomable terror that had nestled in its heart. Kansas City was a puppet theater, a stage where human marionettes danced to the silent tune of alien puppeteers. Its once rich song was now a monotonous drone, a dirge to the death of humanity that echoed through the hollowed streets. Elias stood as a lone beacon of hope in this dystopian landscape, an emblem of resistance against the cosmic parasites. His days and nights became a blur, a relentless pursuit to expose the horrifying truth and expel the alien invaders. But the entity within him was growing stronger, feeding on his memories, his emotions, his past despair. Every moment was a battle, a tug-of-war between his humanity and the consuming darkness within. One fateful night, he found himself at the doorstep of the Halden family crypt, the eye of this storm. The cold wind sang a melancholic serenade as he descended into the heart of the tomb. Inside, amidst the shadows and echoes of forgotten lives, he found the parasitic motherlode, a monstrous, pulsating mass of alien matter. It was the epicenter of the invasion, the brain commanding the parasitic soldiers that had seized the town. There was an unbearable heaviness in the air, a suffocating silence that crawled under his skin. It was the physical manifestation of the cosmic horror that had enveloped Kansas City. The sight of the alien mass, throbbing with a terrible life of its own, filled him with a sense of despair and dread he had never known before. Summoning the last vestiges of his strength, he fought to destroy the abomination. His efforts, however, were futile. The entity was too strong, too deeply entwined in the fabric of the town. With every blow, it retaliated, the parasite within him responding in kind, writhing and coiling around his soul, tightening its grip. The more he resisted, the stronger it became. And yet he battled on, his will fueled by the dying spirit of Kansas City, by the fading echo of humanity's song. He stood as the last bastion of resistance against an invader that threatened to consume his world. But the cosmic horror was relentless. Elias was just a man, and his strength waned. The parasite burrowed deeper into his psyche, his body becoming a hollow shell, a puppet to the alien entity's will. His consciousness was slowly drowning in a sea of despair, his identity fading into oblivion. In his final moments, he stared into the abyss of cosmic horror, the abyss that had devoured his town, his friends, and now him. He was a candle, snuffed out in the vast, impenetrable darkness of the universe. As his light faded, so did his existence, his body collapsing in the haunting silence of the crypt. His tale was a testament to the fragility of human existence, a haunting melody of cosmic horror that ended on a note of chilling silence. His journey, his struggle, his surrender served as a grim reminder of the unfathomable mysteries that lurk in the shadows of the universe, quietly waiting to consume the unwary. Kansas City was a ghost town, a chilling echo of a once thriving metropolis, its story ending in a whisper that was lost in the grand cacophony of cosmic horror. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed our content, show your support with a like and subscribe, and stay notified by hitting the bell icon. Expect more cosmic horror from Eldritch Tales Factory, and feel free to explore our other stories. See you in the next video.